Hey there, we're Jacqueline from Hourglass of Wine. And last video, I wanted to learn more about the differences between Piedmont Kings and Queens, Barolo and Barbaresco. So I sent myself to go do some research. Thank you so much for bringing back these wines from Barolo and Barbaresco, and I think I can take it from here. Bye! Now, after learning all the theory behind Barolo and Barbaresco wines, it's finally time to taste the differences. So a quick recap of what we learned. Both wines are made with 100% Nebbiolo grapes, but the similarities really end there, as the wines come from different soils, different microclimates, and are aged differently. As a side note, Barolo can be made over a much larger area of 11 villages, and Barbaresco is a much more limited area with only 4 villages. So what does this mean for what we'll find in our glasses? Well, on a theoretical level, both will be full-bodied, and thanks to the aging have relatively smooth tannins. I would also expect similar levels of acidity, and both are obviously very well suited for aging and hanging on to for extended periods. Your average Barbaresco is, however, going to be a little bit more elegant and a little bit more accessible sooner than Barolo. The grapes generally ripen earlier and more reliably in the Barbaresco younger soils, thanks to also lower vineyards, a slightly warmer climate, some autumn mists, thanks to the proximity of the Tanaro River, and an earlier harvest. These climatic and soil differences lead to an overall lighter style, compared to the Barolo, that is. And it has a little bit more of a fruity characteristic to it. As well, the nose should be slightly less intense than that of the Barolo, although just as elegant. And the median Barolo, contrasting to the Barbaresco, will have a little extra punch of power, and it will be a little bit more austere because of the older soils and the slightly cooler climate. The extra year of aging will also allow it to develop more hearty tertiary aromas like leather, tobacco, and truffle notes. This extra power and tannins is why Barolo will do better with a little bit of extra age in the bottle. This helps to smooth everything out. Looking at all of these theoretical differences, we can see why Barolo is called the king and Barbaresco its queen. And one more quick point I want to make. First of all, obviously, winemaker preferences really come into play, and here in particular, there is an ongoing debate that started in the 80s between traditionalists and modernists. Also, we must remember that especially in the case of Barolo, that covers a relatively large area, wines from single vineyards of a particular village can be very different from one another. And those will be very different from a Barolo that is made of a mix of vineyards from different areas. This is thanks to the diverse soils and microclimates that we talked about in our previous theory video. To understand what I mean, try a Barolo from Serravallian d'Alba and one from La Mora, and you will feel the world of difference. But these specific differences are discussions for future videos. So just to remember, we are talking, of course, about generalizations and theory when we talk about these generalized styles. But now, let's get to the fun part, the tasting. I have here a Barolo and a Barbaresco from the same winery, Alessandro Rivetto. It was important to us to be able to taste the wines from the same producer. Let's get tasting. Time for the tasting. We've got the Barbaresco here with the blue marker and Barolo here with the pink marker. Ready? A lovely nose to start off the bat with the Barbaresco. I smell some sour cherries, but I also smell a little bit of the wood aging, some vanilla toasty-like notes. And I definitely get that classic Nebbiolo violet coming out. Got a nice acidity, I can feel it here, and I also really like the tannins. They're there, they're nice and sandy, and they cover my palate well, but they're not obtrusive in any way. Really smooth. Fabulous wine. All right, let's try the Barolo. That tertiary note that we were talking about earlier that kind of tobacco leather scent. I definitely smell that here. It has the fruit here, same cherries, but they're like a cherry jam here. It's a nice, thick cherry jam. Here we see same acidity, like we said. The tannins are a little bit more pow, which I think leads to that idea that the Barolo should be a tiny bit more powerful. I get that here. It's a little bit more full in my mouth, where the Barbaresco is much, much more accessible. I'm ready to drink it now, despite the fact that it is a year younger than the Barolo. As something else, I'm looking at the bottles here, and I see that the Barbaresco is a 14% alcohol and Barolo 14.5% alcohol. And that kind of tracks with what I'm feeling. I'm really feeling, yes, elevated alcohol. 14 is quite a bit, but I'm noticing I feel it slightly more in the Barolo. And I think this is an interesting discussion when we think about the disciplinare, or the laws behind making Barolos and Barbarescos. In fact, Barbarescos need a 12.5% minimum alcohol and Barolos a 13% minimum alcohol. So it kind of makes sense that we're gonna see maybe Barolo that has a touch more alcohol in it than the Barbarescos. So overall, looking at the two wines, I don't know that if you put them blind in front of me, I could pick out which one was the Barolo or the Barbaresco. But knowing all of the differences that we talked about before, I definitely am able to kind of sense those differences, to get the tertiary flavors coming out of the Barolo, to sense the elegance coming out of the Barbaresco. And I think it's a really fun exercise to be able to taste them one next to the other and do that compare contrast. It really helps cement in one's mind those differences and kind of create a flavor memory of what we're looking at here. And I want to say, even though I'm not judging quality in any way, that's not the point of this exercise. The point here is to judge typicity. I want to say that overall, these are just really good wines. I really am liking these, and I'm going to have a nice dinner tonight. So thank you for joining me today. If you filled up your glass a little, leave a like down below and subscribe for more content like this. Be sure to check out the theory portion of this series here in our previous video, and I will see you with the next glass. Our glass of wine. Bye.